CB Insights published their top 20 startup failures, and these are the top 10. And I really believe that the core of the failure is this number one, no market need. And how do you get around that? Through customer discovery and product market fit, the fundamentals of the lean startup. Next slide, please, Len. So who am I? I'm a product innovation consultant. I help my clients, typically startups and entrepreneurs, move new products from opportunity to launch. I get in as early as a head scratch, just an idea, or as late as failed product in the field. Failed could be defined as physical failure, or it could be market failure. I'm an inventor and entrepreneur. I've started a couple businesses, and I've got over 65 patents in my name. Yes, these slides will be shared. Renata will take care of that. I'm also an educator. Oh, Len, let's go back. I'll let you know when I want the next slide.
Sorry
please.
about that.
No worries. I've been teaching product innovation, marketing, and entrepreneurship for 10 years. Most recently online, the MBA at Rice program. I'm currently a Cal State University Northridge Entrepreneur in Residence. I've taught in the entrepreneurship program, product and business design at Loyola Marymount University. I've taught product innovation at Pepperdine in the MBA program, my alma mater, in the technology commercialization class at USC, and a mentor at Make in LA, a hardware accelerator. Undergraduate in product design engineering, MBA from Pepperdine, certified NPD new product development professional, and this year is my 40th year doing product innovation work. Len, next slide, please.
Why isn't it working? Hang on.
All right. If you have to escape out.
There we go.
So,
Nope.
Whoops. You hit from the beginning instead of from
okay,
current
right.
slide.
There we go.
So, over the years, I've developed this system that I teach, 3 keys to successful new products. And when an entrepreneur is trying to understand, what am I going to do next? Maybe I should go file a patent right away. Maybe I need to make a prototype right away. I've created these 3 keys to give people a path, some clarity, a lighthouse signal as to what to do when. So first and foremost is the marketability, really truly deeply diving into the market and understanding the opportunity. Number 2 is technical feasibility. Once you really understand the opportunity in the market, and we're going to talk more about that today, then you want to understand how do you design, develop, and if it's a hardware item, manufacture it at a cost low enough where everybody in the distribution channel can make money. Then and only then do you move forward in protecting it with IP, which can be quite expensive. Over 90% of all patents in the United States never make a penny. Why do they never make a penny? Primarily because they skip number 1. So products may be patented, but nobody cares. So again, I'm going to try to help you beat the odds today. Next slide, please, Len. All right, so the lean startup. Probably most of you have heard about the lean startup. It originated with Steve Blank, and then his protege, Eric Ries, wrote a book, The Lean Startup. And now Steve Blank has numerous videos available. And in my deck here, you'll see a number of links to the Steve Blank Udemy class on Lean Startup. And my students at Pepperdine and LMU were required to watch the first 2.5 hours. I've got a little twist on the Lean Startup, however. With my customer discovery approach, I break it down into 3 levels of customer discovery, and we'll be talking about that a little bit more. But fundamentally, under customer discovery, you have to find the right users. You have to create an interview guide of non-leading questions. We're going to talk about that. Then you're going to do the interviews, capturing that data, capturing the insights. Then, now you're going to have to analyze that data for the product market fit by interpreting the results, creating the insights, maybe even ranking those values, benefits, features from the market. And then during development, you want to manage the new product development trade-offs so that you have what I call fidelity between what it is that you ultimately develop and what it is the market said they valued. And we're going to talk more about that. Next slide, please, Len. So again, these are the links, and you'll have them available. Next slide, please. And next slide as we move into customer discovery. So we're going to take just a couple of minutes and get an overview video of customer discovery from Steve Blank. So Len, if you could play that video, please. And make sure we're sharing the sound. I think you got that set already. And if you have any problems.
First step, customer discovery. You're going to be living this for the next couple of weeks if you're doing this for real.
Pause, please, Len.
State your hypotheses and your draw.
Pause. Len, you're still sharing the PowerPoint window. You need to share the, so stop share. Share the other window, please, with YouTube. Thank you. Pause that, and then go back to share with audio sound.
Oh, I did. Sorry about this, folks.
All good. And I apologize, I've got bandwidth issues or I'd be doing this.
All right, let's go to the screen.
So I'm getting an echo. Len, do you have two Zoom sessions open?
I do.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yes. All right, now we can play this. Thank you. Audio sound is playing.
Take a look.
Did you share?
Step, customer discovery. You're going to be living this for the next couple of weeks if you're doing this for real. Phase one is you state your hypotheses and you draw the business model canvas. And again, you put the canvas on the wall, you and your team get around and put up yellow stickies. But the next step is you get out of the building. You're going to test the problem. You're going to test your understanding of the customer's problem or need, and you're going to figure out how to build the prototype. The next thing is you're going to test the solution. You're going to test the solution if you're on the web by building a low fidelity and then a high fidelity prototype. And you're going to, again, test your understanding of the customer's needs and whether your solution matches it. And this match, again, is called product market fit. That's the holy grail for entrepreneurs. Am I building something that people can't get enough of or are just willing to open up their wallets and empty it in front of you to get their hands on? And the fourth phase in customer discovery is you verify or pivot. Do people agree that you're solving a high value problem or need? And do you understand your business model enough to start test selling, which is the next step in customer validation? Now, what's really depressing to most entrepreneurs is the answer most often the first time you go through this is heck no. You know, and what's worse is, well, they kind of sort of like, well, kind of sort of is not a startup. Kind of sort of is people have been nice to you. The only time you know that you have something that's worth investing your time and money in is if people are literally trying to force their money on you or can't use your product even in its buggy, uninitialized form enough. This is what you're looking for. And if you haven't found it yet, that's why the customer development process is an iterative circle. It assumes you will be going through this multiple times. And when you finally think you do have something that matches customer needs, you get to the next step, which is customer validation.
Excellent. Thank you, Len. Let's escape out of this and head back to share the PowerPoint, please. And we've only got a few videos, but these are all critical videos. All right, next slide, please.
When I first started at Conversion Technologies,
sorry, in the background, you got to shut that one off.
I left Intel.
Okay. So now that, whoops, we need you to share that again. And Len, you are on mute. There we go. So the next step is to find the right users. And the question becomes, a lot of my clients ask, well, how do I find these people? So I characterize the users as anybody who is really what I call a stakeholder. A stakeholder could be customers who in the end are going to buy the product and use the product. They're going to be distributors or dealers who are in the distribution chain because they're going to stock it on a shelf or resell your product. They're going to be key opinion leaders. These are all important stakeholders. And we'll talk a little more about stakeholders, but these are important folks for you to be able to interview. Next slide, please, Len. And then if you already have an ongoing entity, you'll have internal stakeholders. You may already have customer service that's been taking complaints on an existing product and you're working on generation 2. If you've got a hardware device, there's a repair department and they see all kinds of problems with your existing products and you want to make sure you're capturing their input as you move to a new product or a new generation of product. So you're looking at short-term customers, those who are ready to buy now, and maybe long-term. Long-term contracts may include fleet enterprises or maybe the military, governmental contracts. Those are long-term, typically long-term customers. Ideally, you want to interview all of these people and understand who they are and what their needs are before you're developing your product. Next slide, please. I want to tell a little story, and there is a URL at the bottom you'll have in the slide deck that tells the story in its full detail. But essentially, this is about customer discovery and finding the right users and making a success in a product. This product you're seeing on the screen is called Go Speak. I was working with an electronics company in Camarillo out in Ventura County. They were a manufacturer of remote control, slide forward, slide back, infrared and radio frequency. And they wanted to grow their business and they weren't sure how to do that. So I asked them who their customers were and they said to me, well, we do OEM work, so our customers are digital projector manufacturers. And I said, well, digital projector manufacturers are your direct customer, but they're not your end users. You really want to be able to get to your end users and talk to them. I'm sorry, Adriana, I need you to mute yourself, please. Thank you so much. And now I found the National Speakers Association. We did a focus group. We got a number of professionals to be able to give us insight into a professional speaker's life and what kind of anguish they had. We came out with a half a dozen great new product ideas, and this one stood head and shoulders above the rest. They wanted, these professional presenters, speakers, and trainers wanted an ultra-portable public address system, not those giant speakers that you see in a venue. And they said, look, we need something that can fold up small like a laptop, can go in the overhead $1,000. If you do that, we would buy it tomorrow. Went back to the CEO of the company. He said, how to do that? I said, no problem, find a strategic partner. Found the strategic partner for a $35,000 initial investment. This product has generated multi-millions of dollars of revenue and still is in market today, 13 years later, on the Generation 3 version product. And again, the whole story will be available with that URL. Next slide, please, Len. So it's time to start writing the interview guide, and I want to differentiate interviews from surveys. Surveys are typically something you send out, maybe through the internet, and you're asking very straightforward, I would call them almost binary questions. Do you prefer pink or blue? Here's what the product looks like. Here's pink, here's blue. Which one would you buy? That's, a survey. But when you're doing interviews, you really want to meet somebody face to face. And I know how difficult that could be in our COVID world, but even in Zoom is better than just sending a survey out. You want to create this interview guide. Yes, these slides will be available. With non-leading questions. So you don't want to say something like, would you like to buy this? And show them the picture. You want to ask them questions about what their anguish is, and we're going to walk through that in a minute. Assume that you've got 20 to 40 minutes. Anything greater than 20 to 40 minutes, people tend to run out of patience. Ideally, you can capture the answers to your questions with something online like Google Forms on a tablet or SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics, and you want to have a second person who's a scribe. You don't want to ideally be the person who's asking the question and trying to write and trying to pay attention and trying to write and trying to pay attention. That doesn't work because usually you'll miss a nuance in a facial feature, like a grimace or an inquisitive look, that's very important to be able to probe deeper. Next slide, please, Len. So when you're creating the interview guide, you want to understand, are people already in anguish? So the people who are professional speakers and presenters and trainers, their anguish was a high probability they would get to a venue where they would have to speak and the PA system wouldn't work. It wasn't compatible, it was broken, it was too big for the room, it was too small for the room. So there was that common big pain that they identified. Was there a hack? Was there something they were doing now? Well, unfortunately, in this case, there wasn't. But if there is a hack out there, understanding what that hack is that your customers are trying to make do now will give you insight into what the product might be that you could commercialize. Are your customers losing time? Are they losing money? Are they losing business? If they are, then there's an opportunity that you want to probe why they're losing it, how they're losing it, how much money they're losing or business they're losing. That may also help you set pricing down the road. And one of the key questions I often tell my clients to ask, and I ask when I'm doing interviews, if there was one thing you could change about the product that's in the market today that you're using that you're unhappy with, what is that one thing you would change? And usually that's the most important, the highest priority, the thing that they value the most is to change that one thing, and that's what you would focus on in development. And then the classic questions of what do you like least about what it is you have now, what it is that you like most. All right, next slide, please. Let's see here. So you're going to be probing questions on the value of the new product. Can they quantify the value of the fix? Boy, if you could come up with a product that did X, Y, and Z, I expect I could save $100,000 a year. That would be really good to know. You get 10 of those customers. Now you've got something to really, develop and market against. You want to understand where and how they would buy the product. Do they expect to see it online? Is there a particular store they expect to see it at? Where would they buy it is an important thing when you go to interview the distributors in the market. You want to interview people where your customers expect to be able to buy the product. And let's say you've got a subject matter expert like a professional speaker or trainer. You want to ask them if there's anybody that they know, a business colleague or a friend, that you could also interview. That's called never let a lead die. It's kind of like sales, but not like sales. In this case, the lead is to be able to find someone else to interview so that you can get to a nice mass of folk, like 20, 30, 40 people that you've interviewed. Questions tailored specifically to your new product's value proposition. So you should be working on your business model canvas. You should understand the value proposition, and you should be asking questions that are tailored to that specific value proposition. Next slide, please, Len. All right, let's play this video. So we're going to have to stop this share and do the other share, please, with audio. Thank you, Len. I know this is challenging here. We've only got, I think, 3 videos total. Glenn, you are muted.
Is it the Steve Blank? Let's see, is it this one?
No, we did that one. It's the Simon Sinek.
All right, hang on.
2 minutes of why.
Yep, hang on.
Thank you so much.
Yep, there we go. There's Simon. So now.
Pause him and then share.
Yeah. This is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, to be honest.
You're going to be a pro.
I'm learning.
Len, pause, please.
Okay.
Adriana, can you hear that playing? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up. All right, go ahead then, Len. I'm sorry.
Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Okay, and thank you, Len. So let's go back to sharing the PowerPoint where we left off. Whoops, you need to stop the share.
I did.
Stop the share and stop the video, or close that tab, please.
Oh, I got to close. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. All right.
It's all right. You're doing great. I'm going to give you a merit badge when we're done.
You're killing me.
I know. You're doing great.
Let's see. Now I'm going to share and go back to here. And, oh, look at that.
So next slide, please.
Oh, that's easier said than done. There we go.
All right. So this is where I really start to deviate a little bit from Steve Blank and a lean startup. I've broken the interviewing process into 3 phases. Phase 1 is called discovery, pure discovery, no selling. This is fundamentally asking questions of anguish. So I had a product in development. It was a residential fire suppression system. We had to go out to people in their homes who've been evacuated during fires and understand their anguish, understand what they did, understand their fears, understand what they would have been willing to do to not have to be evacuated. It's the fundamental questions of their anguish. Without ever offering a product, without ever offering a sale, without ever showing any idea, it was just the pure discovery, because that fundamental pure discovery is something that will inform your subsequent interviewing. Same thing happened in the dental industry. We interviewed dental hygienists, and she said, oh, we do this and we do that, we do this and we do that. And we ended up actually then taking a video, watching her do what she does, and found out, without ever offering any solution, she said she did A, but what she really did was A prime. And the difference between A and A prime was just enough that it would have influenced the product's design. So that deep understanding of what's going on, what's wrong with the world, I used to tell my students, Tell me what's wrong with the world. I want to understand that deeply. That comes first. Number 2 is an oral hypothesis. An oral hypothesis is where you're going to say, if there was a solution that would get over your anguish and it might do X, Y, and Z, how would you feel about that? Oh, well, I would like that, but I don't like this. Would it do this? Would it do that? I don't know. It might do that. Would you want it to do that? Well, if it could do A, B, and C, which would be more important? A or B or C? Or could you rank order them for me if it could do all 3 things? Right? So you're starting to test something orally, but you've not disclosed your invention. That oral hypothesis, what if, is really not telling somebody how to, what the patent attorneys call, reduce it to practice. You're not interested in telling them how you're going to do what you're going to do. You're really trying to address the why. And what is it that their anguish is, and maybe a little bit of the what on how you might do what you do, but not much. Phase 1 and phase 2 of the interviews, from my experience and my discussions with intellectual property attorneys, do not require a non-disclosure agreement. And when you're doing interviews, it's often very difficult to get non-disclosure agreements. Most people don't like to sign legal contracts, especially if they're giving you their time. So if you can keep phase 1 and phase 2 valuable content, valuable market research without having to do the NDA, that's very helpful. Then move on to phase 3. Phase 3 is where you're going to test a prototype. It could be a physical prototype, it could be a virtual prototype, it could be a mock-up of an app or of a website, SaaS app, whatever. But you're going to do that under non-disclosure agreement because at this point, you're going to be showing a prototype. You may be showing, your website, you may be showing a physical prototype, you may be asking people to use it and test it and give you data on it in their real-world environment. But this is where you get to phase 3 that requires a non-disclosure agreement. Okay, next slide, please, Len. All right, this is the last video, so Len is going to have a sigh of relief with that. And if I knew I was going to have so many spectrum problems, I would have ganged these all together, I guess, but it is what it is. Share audio, computer sound.
Yep. I just want to make sure I have the right share here.
This should be the ethnography one.
Correct?
Yes. All set.
An increasingly popular technique in new product development is what has come to be known as ethnography, a term that really grew out of the field of anthropology, and it's really just an academic sounding word for observational research. Why do it? Well, I think the notion is that sometimes there's a huge departure between what people say they do versus what they actually do. And the only way we would know this, of course, is through observation. Another problem is that there's some needs that we refer to as unarticulated needs. They're things the customer doesn't even think about, and in a straight conversational interview might never bring up. I'll give a couple of examples of that. We were many years ago working with a division of Baxter on a new dialysis machine. And one of the things that no customer ever brought up, but which we observed, is that during a dialysis treatment, the nurses have to be writing a lot of things down. And they seem to be going ridiculous distances across the clinic just to find a flat surface on which to write something down. Nobody ever brought it up, but we observed it time and time again. And what my client ultimately did was they put like a flat shelf on top of the machine that was just incredibly popular, even though it had been totally unarticulated. Now, of course, once you brought it up with people, yeah, they recognized it immediately. Yeah, I always go all the way over to the nurse's station just to write something down. There's also, again, this disconnect between what they do and what they say they do. If you we were doing something on auto painting, and companies, it turns out the process of color matching is actually non-trivial. It's a very complicated thing to do, and all of the paint manufacturers have a very rigorous, specific way, set of steps that you're supposed to go through to get a perfect match. Well, when we got out there and started watching guys painting cars, what we saw was they weren't paying any attention to all those steps at all. They were taking every shortcut in the book, figuring they could get it close enough. Why do they do that? Well, most of them are paid based on piecework. So, faster is better, and close enough is good enough. And our client was totally unaware of this. So there's this big disconnect that you can only learn sometimes through observational techniques. Now, there are a lot of pros and a lot of cons to ethnography. One of the difficulties is that the interviews are very costly and very time-consuming. And as a result, it's impossible to get the kind of sample size that many product developers feel they need to do good voice of the customer or good discovery study. So they tend to rely on relatively small sample sizes. The other big problem that everybody contends with is the issue that has come to be known as the Hawthorne effect. And in a nutshell, what that is the notion that observation alters behavior. For instance, you would see this all the time in a construction site, where when the workers know that they're being observed, everybody's going exactly by the book, they're wearing their hard hat and following all the safety rules. And the minute the observers go away, they go back to sometimes we wear the hard hat, sometimes we don't, sometimes we saw a board over our knee, which is a real no-no. It's a great way to cut into your leg. And it's almost impossible to filter that out in an ethnography. It simply is a kind of a fact that a good researcher has to try to contend with along the way.
Thank you, Lynn. If you could close that out and make sure it's stopped in the background. And that's the last video we'll be playing today. And if we can go back to the PowerPoint, please.
Of different groups of people. Well, that's what we'll be learning about today as we journey through ethnographic research. Ba-da-da-da. Welcome to another.
Okay, sorry. Got to close the tab completely.
Yeah.
Thank you. And make sure when you go to share, you're sharing the PowerPoint window.
Yeah, I tried that.
There we go. Next slide, please. Okay, so ideally you are in the user's environment. You heard that. Capturing by video would be best, audio second. Always bring a scribe if you're going to be doing written work, whether it's on a tablet or on a notepad. Typically, I work with my clients, they're around 10 questions, 8, 10, 12 questions, 20 to 40 minutes in duration. Think about your interviewee compensation. Maybe cash, maybe gift card, maybe nothing. Maybe you give them a free sample when the product comes out. These are all possibilities. Next slide, please. And let's just get through these pretty quick. Product market fit. So you're going to look at all these insights. You're going to look at these, what I call persistent and consistent. People are begging you for the product, and everybody's got the same voice, 80% or more. If they have the same message to you, then that's a good thing. Next slide, please. I'm going to leave this for you to dig into on your own, but essentially you want to understand the why, the values, which spin into benefits, which spin into product features. Next slide. And you'll need a way to be able to prioritize what you're getting. And so the last bullet here, consider tools to prioritize. They may be force ranking, weighting, or a technique called conjoint analysis. And there's a link to a video that's a nice video on conjoint analysis from the same gentleman, Jerry Katz. Next slide, please. So the most important thing here for me is this a bullet at the bottom, managing the new product development trade-offs. So when you create these insights, they're all going to have features that are being driven into your product spec from the market insights. And the question becomes, which ones am I going to do? Which ones am I not going to do? And you have to manage those trade-offs. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And this is something that I developed called the NPD Project Pentagon. So in a physical product, you'll trade features, product cost, capital equipment cost, development cost, and schedule. At Mattel Toys, when I was there, we used to say Christmas never moves. So schedule was king. In the medical device industry, schedule is irrelevant. It's all about the feature set and the performance. And if you're doing software, then obviously capital equipment's not relevant. Next slide, please. So this is a force ranking. The market's value is column 1, where we've taken a base product in row 1 and looked at 5 different add-ons that could be features in the product. And we've mapped the percent of the total product cost of these against their forced rank from the market. You can see item 4 is a 32% of the total product cost, but the market only valued it as the 4th out of 5 potential add-ons. And I'm working on an article to look at this in the Z direction, which is time to market or development difficulty. And so if you were to map the market ranked value against the product cost impact and the time to market, because you want to get to market as fast as possible, now you start to really make informed decisions about what you're going to do in development. Next slide, please. And we're going to skip this. Next slide, please. And skip this one, and I think skip this one. These will all be embedded for you. And this is the essence I want to leave you with. Customer discovery.
Eric, you just your voice just disappeared.
Okay, let's finish. Let's wrap up. Let's go today. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
So just start with the top of this slide.
It's a repeat of what we talked about before, about the customer discovery and product market fit. I'm going to stop my video. That might open up some bandwidth a little bit. And let's just be clear that during development, you want to make sure you're managing the new product development project trade-offs. All right, Len, I think that's the last slide for today. Okay, and let's stop the video.
There we go.
And because I'm having bandwidth, I'm going to leave my video off, but I am here for questions if there are any questions, concerns, comments. Anyone have any questions for today?
Hey, Eric. This is Sonny. Can you hear me?
Yes, Sonny. Thank you. I can.
All right. Fantastic. So I'm currently, a little bit about myself. I'm a management consultant, but what I've been doing over the last several months, 3 years, has been just helping people who have cool ideas and they're entering accelerators or helping funded companies through some of the problems that they're encountering. A question I have is for one of the folks that I'm helping advise. He just created an MVP. I don't think that he went through the customer development process steps of, let's say, step 1, step 2, which is to do some sort of validation in the market. But he did build an MVP. For people who do that, what are the next steps in the customer discovery process? Because they skipped steps 1 and 2.
Well, I'll tell you what I tell about 70% of my clients who walk in the door have the cart before the horse. And what I don't want people to do, because I see this time and time again, is that they think they've got a great idea and they rush off to do the MVP, only to find out that really, when they get it out in the market, they become one of the 42% that fail because they've delivered something to the market doesn't value. So if a client is wanting to work with me, and I do similar to what you do, I work with entrepreneurs to help them move from opportunity to market. And if they are unable or unwilling to do the fundamental customer discovery work, even if they've built an MVP and they have to literally, go back to start almost, then generally I don't work with them, because they're going to rush headlong into something, and high probability, unless they're a really strong subject matter expert, like my spine surgeon client, even he brought in some experts, even though he had expertise. But if you can't do that customer discovery and product market fit, the probability is you're going to fail, and then everybody's going to be tainted from that, yourself included, Sonny.
Mm-hmm. That's real.
Did that answer your question?
Good. Yes.
Okay. Well, make sure you ping me on LinkedIn so we can continue that dialogue, because that's a good one.
Sure.
Anyone else? Other questions?
Hey, Eric,
Okay.
can I ask a question real quick?
Sure, and then Martin, you'll be up next. Go ahead, Brandon.
So I have a consumer app similar to Instagram, and we were launching a month ago, and we had all sororities and fraternities and intramural sports teams and all kinds of people signed up to start to be our interviews and our test market, and everything was disbanded. So then we started doing more virtual interviews, and we were finding that data is completely out the window. We don't understand why people don't. It's like almost not truthful. Like, would you recommend the product to a friend? 100% yes. And then we track them, and they never recommend the product to a friend. That kind of stuff. So, do you have any things that you see working now in this kind of everything locked down kind of period, or what do you suggest?
Tell me more about how you captured the data. Did you do a face-to-face Zoom?
They were more the surveys.
No,
we
I
did
don't trust.
face to face, but we couldn't get a lot, maybe 5, 10, but 50, 60.
I just don't trust surveys.
Okay.
Surveys are for pink or blue, in my opinion. Surveys are for pink or blue, right? They're not for somebody just grimaced, right? You're interviewing somebody on a Zoom, and they reel back in their chair, or they look up at the ceiling and they put their hand on their chin. And then so that's the opportunity for you to probe deeper as to what's going on, and what are you thinking, and what caused you to give me that face, or et cetera, et cetera. So pink or blue, okay, you can do a survey, but I just don't trust surveys otherwise. I would work harder to do some Zoom interviews or socially distant interviews or observational ethnographic research, when we come off lockdown. But maybe you have to pause another month. I don't, but I would not trust surveys.
Right, and I don't remember this being touched on, but in those face-to-face interviews, we get a lot of people that, we're giving them the app, they're running through it with them, we're taking their time, we're basically saying, take your time. It's not just give us some verbal feedback. And they get really nervous and anxious because they think that we are in some kind of hurry, or that we're judging them and not their reaction to the product. So any feedback or maybe suggestions about how to get somebody over that hump of them being judged?
Well, there's a couple things. Do you use any software? I forgot. One of my clients was using, I think it's Tangerine. I can't remember. It's a software application that'll run on a platform that will give you data about the user and their clicks. And so that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is just come right out and be really clear with them. It's not about them. It's about how friendly and easy the app is for them. And your job is to make the app as good as it possibly can be. And you need people like them to help test that and try to really work hard to disarm them. So those are a couple thoughts.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Martin, you had a question.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And first of all, appreciate the talk and how you structured everything. It definitely helped focus my mind. I really wanted to ask you a couple of points. One is on the discovery process. Typically, what sort of timescales would you normally allow for that part of the process?
Well, it depends on the complexity of what you're trying to research. If it's a simple mechanical toy that's not even electronic, and you know your target audience, and you know, it's a spring water toy that's going to retail for $9.99, and it just has a couple, 3 features, then it might not take very long. You might do that in 4 to 6 weeks, 2 to 5 weeks. But if it's a complex hardware, software, firmware, user interface design, et cetera, then that could take months. It could take 2, 3, 4 months to do the kind of research necessary to get valuable data.
Right. Thank you. That's useful. And just my second question really was around, obviously, this process works for any type of new product development, not just startup-led.
Correct.
New product development. So, for example, I've got 2 hats: a startup hat and a big corporate hat. So I'm thinking of products from the big corporate perspective too. Mainly, I'm looking at business as opposed to consumer. So would the process be substantially any different?
No, I worked with a PPE company in Culver City, and they were developing a full-face respirator, and it's one of the stories on my website. And when I walked in the door, they really weren't doing any customer discovery work, and they were relying on internal expertise and maybe a salesman to guide what the new product ought to be. But the product investment was going to be, mid-6 figures when it came to R&D and tooling and marketing and so forth and so on. And it really needed a much deeper level of customer discovery and product market fit. And it took a lot of arm twisting, a lot of non-disclosures, and a lot of faith to do that customer discovery and product market fit. And in the end, and it was a long road, that full-face respirator turned out to be the respirator of the year at the annual trade show in Dusseldorf 2011, and we beat out Honeywell and 3M.
Awesome.
And it would have never happened without the customer discovery and product market fit, even though this was a 30-year-old company with well-established sales.
So Eric, if I may, one last point, one last question really, which is, again, looking at almost like doing a lightning customer discovery exercise. You mentioned some of the tools around using Survey Monkey and similar type surveying tools. Is there any sort of other sort of software or SaaS type packages you could perhaps say or suggest as might being useful to really get the discovery process, at least what I call like the quick and dirty finger in the air, rocking and rolling in very short timescales?
There are some things that are out there, none of them that I've really spent any time looking at. And let me be clear about something you said regarding SurveyMonkey, Google Forms, Qualtrics. Those are tools that you would have on a tablet that simply house the questions in your interview guide. I'm not an advocate for doing SurveyMonkey surveys on qualitative research. Again, they're good for pink or blue if you're going to send it out. But if you've got your interview guide in SurveyMonkey and you're reading it off a tablet and you're filling the answers in on the tablet, or your associate is because you want 2 people there, one to interview, one to scribe, that's all fine and dandy. Honestly, I've been in my own consulting business for 8 years and I have never found any software package that I was happy with to write interview guides for this type of customer discovery work. So it ends up just being 9 times out of 10, it's done in Microsoft Word.
Right. Makes sense. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I'd like to offer a suggestion.
sure, Karen.
My background is in speech pathology, clinical audiology, and I just want to address the area of pragmatics or nonverbal language. Some of the research that I did in graduate school that really helped interview, but more on a clinical end, but to get feedback both in psychology and communications was called inter-process recall, but I believe that this method could be applied specifically for one of the people that mentioned what they wanted, the testing of their clients to get feedback. What happens when you videotape someone while you're doing the process, this is the process of what it is. You videotape them, you cut the interview shorter than you'd normally do, and then you sit back with the client and ask them, tell me what you were thinking about. It removes a lot of the stress, the anxiety, and you get better feedback that way. And it's a method that I've used in business analysis, and it's really helped.
That's great, Karen. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
If there's any articles on that process, if you could share them with Len or Renata, that we could distribute it, that would be great.
Well, I'll look for it.
Thank you.
I can't. The book is really old. That's dating my graduate school days. I'll just kind of write it up though and send it to Len.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
Karen.
Sure.
Are there any other questions? I don't see anybody writing anything down. So, Eric, do you want to wrap up?
I do. Thank you, Len. So, again, I really believe that the process of customer discovery and product market fit, I'm going to see if I can get my video back on to say goodbye here. Customer discovery and product market fit is critical for new product development. Whether it's hardware, software, service, it doesn't really matter. But fundamentally, doing that hard work first, so really getting out there and understanding the anguish as step one, then doing the oral hypothesis, step two, and then ultimately under non-disclosure, step three, where you disclose your specific offer. And when I say offer, I mean could be product, service, or both. That's most important. So that process is really critical. And when you do that, your probability of success, whether it's a startup or an established company, is much higher, and all the evidence shows it. And I can tell you over and over again, when you don't, there's a lot of hiccups and gotchas. And I can't tell you how many clients I've seen that have run into that trap. So that's my recommendation for today. If you'd like to find me, I'm on LinkedIn, Eric Paul Rose, or ericpaulrose.com on the web. Thank you very much. These slides will be available.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your insights, your wisdom, your experience, and your communication skills. I hope I learned a lot on how to share screens today with multiple different things going on. So thank you for giving me that opportunity.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye
All
now.
right. Bye-bye, everyone.
You know, Len, if you could stay on for a moment, we'll do a quick wrap. That'd be great.
Yeah, I will.
Awesome. We have a few people probably.
Yeah, people falling off.
Yeah, may have stepped away and haven't come back yet.
Oh, let me get off. Thanks,
Karen.
Sorry.
All good. Anyone else on that needs to sign off?
I can just get rid of them.
They may have stepped out for a moment. Here, one more. Awesome. Well, 3 cheers for you. That was incredibly challenging, but I really, really appreciate it because it made all the difference in the world.
No, it worked out fine. Let me turn off the